My name is Tim Daniels, minister of the Trinity Gardens Church here in Houston, right here on 7725 Sandra on the near north side, and we welcome you to our Moments with the Master. I have a question for you. Have you ever messed up? I'm talking about really messed up. Made a mistake that just seemed huge to you. And you felt guilt, perhaps shame, and you wonder, how in the world could I have done that? Well, you're in company with somebody who's very famous in the Bible, and that's King David. King David, during a time when he should have been really, really close to God and doing great things for God, he made a big mistake with a woman by the name of Bathsheba. He let his family down. He hurt them. He hurt his country. He used people who trusted him. And it was devastating. And I don't know about you, but many of us can relate to how David felt. I believe God put his story in the Bible for a reason. And let's look at how David responded to the mistake that he made. And he showed his response in Psalms chapter 51. What did David do and what should we do? Number one, acknowledge the sin. Very simple. Acknowledge the sin. The Bible says in Psalms 51 and verse 2, the Bible said, David said, wash away all my iniquity. Cleanse me from my sin, for I know my transgressions. He said, I know I sin. It's very simple. Acknowledge the sin. You cannot move forward unless you acknowledge the sin. Number two thing that David did, he accepted responsibility for it. He didn't just acknowledge that was a sin. He accepted responsibility. Notice the Bible says in verse 2 again, wash away my iniquity. Cleanse me from my sin, my transgressions, my sin. In verse 4, he said, I sinned. Number two, accept responsibility. David could have blamed King Saul, who's a wicked king. He could have blamed a father who was not really a good father to David, not what he should have been. He could have blamed his brothers. He could have blamed Bathsheba. David had a lot of people he could have blamed. But David said, I did this. That's a sign of maturity. Accept responsibility. And the third thing is ask for forgiveness. Look at Psalms 51 and verse 1. He said, have mercy on me, O God. Wash away my iniquity. He is asking for forgiveness. When you make a mistake, when you sin, ask number one, God the Father for forgiveness, and then go privately to the people you hurt, that husband, that wife, that son, that daughter, that close friend. Go to them and ask for forgiveness. The fourth thing is, don't seek to avoid God's discipline. One of the greatest gifts that God gives his children is discipline. Don't run from it. And David knew that God's discipline was attached to this sin, and it was part of the process. And so there was a period where God disciplined David because sin carries its own discipline. So don't run from or avoid the discipline. But lastly, after you've acknowledged the sin, accepted responsibility, asked for forgiveness, and gone through the process of God's discipline. Number 5, which is my favorite part, allow God to use you. Allow God to use you. David was a gifted musician, a gifted singer, songwriter, great king, great teacher. The Bible said God restored him to all of those positions. In Psalms 51 and verses 8, 9, 10, and through verse 12, specifically in verse 12, he said, restore to me the joy of my salvation. And when that came back, God restored his kingship. Do you know that David wrote over 50 psalms and songs after he made this mistake? I want you to know that even though you've messed up, even though you've made a mistake, God can still use you for his glory and for his kingdom. You may have made a mistake, but you are not a mistake. You are the glory of God, and he has a wonderful future for you, no matter what mistake you've made. Friend, thank you very much.
Ashamed of what I've done, what I've become. These hands are dirty. I dare not